Hello, good morning, good evening. Hello, Chuck.
Aloha.
Thank you again for being here with us. So nice having you again.
My pleasure.
And today, as we talk now, we're going to talk about the upcoming workshop, end of May, which is a 3-day live sessions at German time at night. And the theme is forgiveness or judgment. So I have been watching myself actually those days, and I have been studying quite a lot from you and know that the world is a mirror, and I know that the judgment is a projection, but there's such an attraction to it to always judge so much outside. So maybe you could just start explaining for the ones who are not so much into the healing journey, or as well for me, who is in the healing journey, but just as well judging what that really means and why we judge so much.
Well, we judge so much because if you think of it this way, we spend a lifetime building up an identity. Mm-hmm. And that identity is made up of separation.
Yeah.
And separation and judgment are a vicious circle. So it's like our very sense of who we think we are is based on judgment.
Yeah.
And we don't want to let go of everything we built through blood, sweat, and tears. We don't realize that when we have judged, we have locked ourselves into a certain perception. This is the way it is. It won't change. I'm stuck with this. I'm really screwed because this is the way it is. Mm-hmm. And we think it's right. I mean, it's so, we do hundreds of judgments every minute, every second. We're all judging. But basically, it's a choice. A Course in Miracles calls it the choice, the momentary choice between heaven and hell.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So think of it. I'd ask you to do an experiment, but those who've done it, you don't have to do this. But just for 1 minute, think of someone or something that you're judging.
Mm-hmm.
Just imagine that.
Yeah.
And as you're doing that, Bettina, what's happening to your energy?
What's disgusting. It's just like draining.
Exactly. It's like there's a hole in your toe and all the energy is running out. And that's what judgment does.
And I feel guilty as well.
Right. And most people don't realize that underneath all judgment is guilt.
Mm-hmm.
So, which means that underneath every grievance you have against someone, mm-hmm. and it's not that they made a mistake, our judgment is they're sinners and they deserve to be punished. But, as Jesus said, you reap what you sow. So anything we're putting out, we're also bringing back toward us. Mm-hmm. And basically, we end up by the end of our lives with so many judgments and so many illnesses that come from guilt and judgment. Mm-hmm. It's like that we just die miserably. But we could be happy because it's like the more we realize, they made a mistake. Yes, and I can let go of this mistake. I can forgive this mistake. Mm-hmm. And what happens is when you're forgiving, you're giving forth, you're reconnecting, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. so that you once again feel bonded with that person. You feel like they're your ally. Mm-hmm. And you can keep forgiving because there's so many layers built up of our grievances. See, as I, when I was in university and I was in graduate school taking philosophy classes and undergraduate school. And what I found was I was looking at understanding the world from a philosophical point of view. And what's really going on here? But I'm basically a practical person. I want to know, that's a fine idea, but as Sun Bear, the First Nations shaman, said, does it grow corn? Mm-hmm. And what I wanted to do is find a way for people to get out of pain. I wanted to find a way to be able to have some power over this outside world, because most people just feel helpless. It is the way it is. Exactly. But as I went deeper into the mind and went into the subconscious mind, it was mind-blowing to me, because I realized that basically what happens to us is not by accident. It's one of the deepest things that I found. That's why I wrote the book, Why Shit Happens, and wrote another book on spiritual perception, because our perception is actually a movie that comes from our mind. So if you want to change the movie, if you don't like the movie, do you go up in the movie theater and try to change the images? Like gets projected on top of you.
Yeah.
But you can go back to the projection room. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the projection room is your mind. Yeah. Or you could go back to where they made the movie and have some kind of happy intervention there. But practically, the way we free ourselves is through forgiveness, because what it does is it bonds us. And under every problem, if you traced it down, you would come to core dynamics. So the core dynamics, what I call the four horsemen of the apocalypse, is one is fear. You can't have any problem without some kind of fear. The problem is actually an attempt to give you a timeout. It's actually an attempt for you to build up your courage and your confidence. And if it's a big problem, the key aspect is the whole next stage. It's not just another step. It's a whole stage, maybe even a whole level in your life. Mm-hmm. And if you don't feel you have the wherewithal to do it, mm-hmm. then it's like you'll create some kind of problem. Mm-hmm. And it's not really creation, because creation comes from love, but we make these things up in our mind. Mm-hmm. And they're made up through, we're going deeper now. They're made up through what we judge in ourselves. Mm-hmm. And when we judge something in ourselves, we go, whoa, I don't like that. That's really guilty. And so the ego says to us, here, let me help you with that. I'll get rid of it for you. So meanwhile, we're burying it because we don't want to know this about ourselves, but then we also project it. So this was the level of perception that I found was practical, because people can change their perception because it's like it's coming from your mind. Perception is projection, as A Course in Miracles says. Mm-hmm. And so you can change your mind. One of my early books was Change Your Mind, Change the World. Mm-hmm. Another book that was really, I thought, just a lovely book to empower people, and especially in relationships where people many times feel the most helpless, is How to Change Your Partner. Yeah. Now, this is the biggest mistake in relationship, trying to change your partner. So why would I title the book How to Change Your Partner? Well, it's to show you tools, and some of which include forgiveness, but to give you tools about how to change your projection, which is, basically coming from your mind. What you see is what you think about yourself. So your whole world is just at an unconscious level, at a soul level, is what you think of. It's the mirror of your own mind. It's what you think about yourself. Now, down in the unconscious, there, I've been, researching this area. Well, it opened up in the 70s. I was working with a client, and somehow we got into a past lifetime. And it was just like mind-blowing. I was a doctoral student. All I needed was to finish my dissertation, but I never heard of anything like this in graduate school. So even though, I was going to graduate school in California, still, they hadn't told me about this. But as I kept following it, and that's the thing, as I had developed this easy, intuitive method to open up the subconscious mind, everything from conception onward. And people have no idea how much of themselves was programmed in the womb and even in early childhood. And the thing is, it's like the discovery of that then actually helped inspire me with ways to change that. So since the 70s, when that first past lifetime came up, it was like, it's been an unbelievable opening. And even then, how ancestral patterns affect people and how guilt gets passed down, how predilection for anger, predilection for certain illnesses, that tendency to go toward that, because there's already grooves in your mind set up by our ancestors.
Wow. Yeah.
So the other thing that's at the root of all problems, beside fear, is guilt and grievances. Now, grievances is just a way of hiding guilt. Mm-hmm. But that's where we pin our guilt on someone else. I work with so many people who felt like they couldn't forgive themselves because they found out that there was somebody out there that they couldn't forgive. That biatch deserves to be punished. That person wounded me. They committed an unforgivable sin against me. Yeah, but that was a soul lesson. You were looking to learn something. Mm-hmm. Okay. So there are canyons of guilt in the unconscious mind. So why repeat forgiveness? One of the exercises that I have people do is to say words of power. I will forgive and this will disappear. But sometimes with a person, you might need to say that, 24 times, 25 times, and layers of the mind release. And then sometimes when you've done it 12 times or even 6 times, it's like hidden parts of your mind that were involved in this begin to appear. I will forgive and this will disappear. So it's like, basically, if you're a forgiving person, you free people from their chains of guilt, but you free yourself from your hidden chains of guilt. Mm-hmm. So if there was one answer, one healing answer, it would be forgiveness. A Course in Miracles calls forgiveness practical love. When you're with a partner or parents, and you forgive them, there's more bonding, and more bonding means love and success with ease. It means intimacy. It means you feel close. It means you begin to look with friendly eyes. Could you imagine, in your forgiveness, Betty, who's the biggest bugger in your life?
Yeah, actually, during your talking, I'm thinking about the war here in Europe.
Okay. So who's the biggest bugger in your life? To repeat my question.
in my life, or it's kind of my life?
Yeah, in the war, who's the biggest bugger in the war?
Putin.
Mm-hmm. So now invite Christ into your mind. Now you could do this with Mother Mary, you could do this with Kuan Yin, it's like, but invite Christ and look at Putin through Christ's eyes.
Yeah, well, it's just so much love. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if you take an attitude of like, instead of judging someone, it's like, look inside them for a moment, just catch a glimpse. How old is that self that's wounded?
Who?
Yeah. Because people either act, in this loving way, or they act in a way that's actually calling for love, calling for forgiveness. So how many wounded 2-year-olds are in there?
200,000.
Right. So let's call in Mother Mary and her armies of angels. And let's have them go address and love that little boy who got so wounded. Because as that divine love comes in, that wounded child, it's like when I was in the 70s, they began talking about the inner child and things like this. And already I forgot, there's not one inner child, there are thousands of them. Yeah. And when they got arrested in growth, that's where they were wounded. And then they look out at the world through 2-year-old eyes. And it gets very simple, it gets very black and white. So we have all these arrested selves. And the power of forgiveness is that we free ourselves. So, so that's, it's like, imagine, it's like, how could you find all this subconscious guilt? The reason why we have subconscious guilt is because we didn't want to look at it. We wanted to bury it.
Yeah.
And so as I started studying back in the 70s to free people who felt wounded, to free people who felt victimized. And, and over the years, I discovered and, found many techniques that would free people. But the basis of all positive emotions comes down to love. And loving is giving, but it's also receiving. I mean, they go together. If you give, you receive what you've just given. Like if you give to someone, you're valuing them. And if you value them, you're valuing yourself. So as all these many hundreds of thousands of wounded selves grow up, when they get to Putin's present age, they'll melt into him. And then there'll be more wholeness, more security, more lessons learned. Because we're all learning our lessons together. So this is a question I ask when people find like their mother unforgivable. And I've gone through this so many hundreds of thousands of times with people all over the world. But Betty, how many times have you acted just like Putin in past lives?
20,000.
20,000.
Oh, yeah.
So he's not the only Ashlock in the room, right?
Oh, no.
I mean, that's the thing. He gives us an opportunity to forgive these old chronic warlords, these old fascist selves. It's all us. The history of the world, that's our history. It's not just collective. It's personal. And the thing is, when you go to forgive a personal figure, it's like you can feel some relief. But if you go to heal a political figure, they're usually the representation of, many self-concepts. Now, back in the 70s, I was the kind of sweetest, mildest person I knew, with a certain flamboyance. And then one day in a workshop, I discovered the Hitler in me and how I'd been compensating for it and hiding it. And I cried for hours. I just cried for hours. Because in my conscious mind in life, as a doctoral student, it would be the last thing that I would think about myself. But it was in my mirror. So to forgive myself at that level was really very powerful. Because the thing is, when you don't forgive, you're miserable. When you don't forgive, you're not taking responsibility, which means you're a victim. It means you're powerless. And that's about the worst thing that can happen. So
explains a lot. So
judgment crucifies us. Betty, you probably have done this exercise before, but how many times have you crucified yourself?
20,000 again now comes up.
Right. So in your mind, what did you think that you did to deserve 20,000 crucifixions?
Those warlords are coming up now.
Mm-hmm. So think back to the times in your life where, you had bad things happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons that spurred me on to write the book about why shit happens, which is the name of that accountability book, was because I read a book written by a rabbi who talked about basically why do bad things happen to good people. And at the end, he had some kind of theological response about God being good and, but it didn't fit psychologically, and which is a much more basic test than theology. Mm-hmm. I was very religious as a young guy and things like this. And then there were things that, it didn't fit anymore. It didn't make sense. So I kept going on this spiritual path. Like, what is it that makes sense? Well, when you free people, you have meaning in your life. And when some people don't get freed, then you just recommit to learning how to get better, mm-hmm. how to free people, because that's a path of forgiveness and self-forgiveness. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, judgment keeps adding to the feeling of being unworthy.
Yeah.
Betty, how many good things have been offered to you that you didn't accept or receive in your life?
100,000.
Right. What if you just received about a third of them? How would your life be?
Totally changing. Fruitful comes up, juicy.
Mm-hmm. Saftig.
Yeah. And
I saw the word saftig in an English novel yesterday. They know. So, if you felt worthy, you would have received all of those things. And the unworthiness comes from guilt and judgment.
Mm-hmm.
When you judge, it's an attack thought. And then, you reap what you sow. Then you see attack coming back to you. And the attack coming back to you creates all kinds of fear. We thought fear is coming from outside. It's realistic to have fear. It protects you. 9. Or to say it in Mandarin, Mayo. It's like it's coming from our mind, and what we're doing, we see coming back to us. I was talking to a woman the other day from Taiwan, and she was saying that she didn't want to be a leader. And I said, how come? They said, well, they get attacked so much. Yeah. And I said, oh, really? I said, how much do you attack leaders? Subconsciously, consciously? And she went, oopsie. Because what you're doing, it's like she didn't want to be a leader because she think people would be doing what she was doing. Mm-hmm. But one of the lessons of leadership is how to deal with attack. And it can frighten you. You can pull out a bigger gun. You could run away. None of these work. But if you realize it's a personal call for help from you, that somehow you're the person that could help them. Yeah. So to have the courage to move toward them. And if you don't have your own personal courage, well, call David, As a teenager, he slew Goliath, or call in Michael the Archangel with his flaming sword. There's all kinds of statues of Mary standing on the devil. The devil's, has his tongue out because she's kicking his butt. That's cool. Call in Mary. See, really, really deep, here. After all these years, all these decades of dealing with the mind, I've gotten to layers of the mind that are really dark in all of us, and that we've actually projected out as diabolical. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But it's us, and we have the power to change that to peace. And, from forgiveness comes happiness. If you're not happy, who's the person you're called to forgive right now? Oh, come
on. My mom.
So, and would that help your mom to give forth to your mom?
Yeah, totally. She would be happy.
Right. Of course. And how many lifetimes were you just like your mom?
200.
Yeah. Now, if you don't believe in past lives, it doesn't matter. It's a metaphor, but it means that deep inside you, if you have 200 lifetimes just like your mom, how many things do you have to forgive yourself for?
5,000.
Yeah. So, and if you forgive your mom now, it'll be 4,999.
Yeah.
But you and your mother will be that much closer.
Yeah.
Because each one is a thread of bonding. And you get enough bonding and you have a string. Mm-hmm. And then if you have enough bonding, you have a rope. Mm-hmm. And if you have enough rope, you have a cable. Uh-huh. And if you have enough cable, you have a bridge. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, mom looks shining. Oh, yeah. Because she always was shining. This is what we're to learn about everybody. And the thing is, it's like those who want to fast track on the way to oneness, it's like this is one way to do it. To just forgive everything, to forgive the world. In A Course in Miracles, it talks about, our purpose is to forgive the world. Because then the main aspect of our purpose comes in is to be happy. So how happy have you been this week?
80-20. At the beginning 80, and then I crossed to 20.
You crossed to 20 because of what thought came into your mind? What experience?
Being dirty, feeling dirty. Actually, the unworthiness came up.
I like dirty girls.
Yeah. Just didn't feel so good.
Could you forgive yourself? Okay. Could you forgive yourself again? Are you going to condemn yourself for this or forgive yourself?
Forgive myself. Yeah, this one. Yeah. It's getting lighter.
I mean, it's like back in the 70s, I studied with a metaphysical teacher and who had some real high connections with spirit. And she goes, we've done it all in all of our lifetimes. And whether you believe that or not, collectively in your mind, you have that in your mind. And every time you forgive yourself for being a dirty girl, girls all over the world get a little freer, a little purer, a little more worthy. And that so-called guilt for being a dirty girl just gets integrated into your higher mind, which means, in your everyday life, you just get more zaftig, more juicy.
I like that.
More happy. And see, it's the thing about forgiveness is like, if you want to help people, and A Course in Miracles says, if you want to help people, you're already a teacher of God. Now, to be an advanced teacher, it takes a lot more. You have to get beyond the body, the belief that you're a body. Okay, because the body is where we've, put all our guilt and all our blame. If you notice you're blaming someone, it's something about what they're doing. It's something they're doing in a body. But anyhow, it's like if you commit to forgiveness, you become a redeemer. You could become someone who frees other people. This world needs so much freedom. Because where you have true freedom, you have partnership. It's not like independence where you go off on your own and you do things your way. Freedom means intimacy. It means, to that extent, partnership. You have roots and you have wings. And that it expands your minds. We have so many gifts inside us, but we've all shut them down out of fear. We're afraid of our greatness.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And so we create problems, we create woundings, and some of them are past lessons that we didn't learn. So recently I've been working with people who've been wounded physically in a major way. And people would go, no, I would have never wanted that car accident. Not in any way, shape, or form. But if you get into the subconscious, there's all kinds of patterns going on, relationship-wise, family-wise. And if there's none of those things going on, then there's some kind of unconscious ancestral pattern, or there's some kind of unconscious going from a past life. And you can heal those patterns. And what happens is, like, every time we made a mistake, we got really wounded, we didn't learn the lesson, we went off the track and we start following an ego path that says, go get something and enjoy yourself in the world. Imagine that attitude with a partner. Go get something and enjoy yourself in the world. That's going to ruin a relationship.
Yeah, I would run away.
Right. Yes, you would. But you would run away only to the extent that you're doing it. Oops. or have done it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So if you realize that's their call for help, and you can hold on to Mother Mary's hands and bring in the juice. You don't have to be afraid of it. We're only afraid of ourselves. We're only afraid of our purpose and greatness. And underneath that, we're only afraid of our higher self. We're only afraid of God.
Yeah.
Crazy. I mean, it's like at the deepest, but you'd never think. Some of the most religious people in the world. I remember doing a workshop in the Five Lake District in Tokyo in 1987. And this woman was devoted to the Buddha. And, I kind of smiled and I said, you're attacking the Buddha. And she goes, what? Did you say that? I said, well, any relationship you have with anyone, including yourself, that's the same relationship you have with the Buddha. And then we found a few places where she had hatred in her life.
Right.
And I just kept edging her deep into her mind, where she began to realize, oh, my Buddha, I hate the Buddha. I've been attacking the Buddha all my life. And I've been compensating for it with this idea of being devoted to him. Well, I said, this is just another example. So what are you attacking the Buddha for? Well, he didn't answer my prayers and he didn't help me. And he didn't, in Japan, when they pray at the temple, they go to wake up the Buddha to, my prayers coming. To pay attention, that kind of thing.
Wow.
Very cute. Very cute. So, so she got to see that what she was accusing the Buddha of was actually, and of course we hide this all from ourselves. That's why our subconscious is so much bigger than our conscious mind. And our soul mind, our unconscious mind, is so much bigger than that. So she got to see that everything she was blaming the Buddha for was what she was doing. Now, this is really deep stuff. But if you begin to realize, and you can only do this if you really want to do this, but if you really want freedom, that everything you've accused people of is what you were doing. Oh, that rings a bell. They show off so much sometimes. So, Betty, you want to play? You want to play?
Okay. Of course.
Yeah. This is easy. This is easy. It's quick. What's the next thing you're judging your mother for?
Can't even pronounce it. A family thing, not really loving my father enough and not really being present and there. And I can totally see where I can take this back to me.
So, did you love your father enough?
No.
And do you feel guilty about it?
Yeah.
We have this kids game it's usually a birthday game where they put a blindfold on kids and they twist them around and have a picture of a donkey and a pin with a tail, and he has to pin the tail on the donkey, and the one that gets closest to the tail part, wins the prize. When I was 7, my next door neighbor got twisted around so much on his birthday that when he went to pin the tail on the donkey, he pinned it on the woman who was the mother who was assisting. She was bending over, and I was going, oh no, this is not going to be pretty. And he pinned her, right in the perfect spot. And she screamed, and the game was over, of course. But, but that's what we all do with judgment. We're pinning the tail on the donkey, and we're the donkey, but it's us that did it. So what percentage would you say you pinned that on your mother from what's inside you?
90, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So an easy way to forgive all of that stuff inside is to forgive your mama, because it's sorry for blaming you for what I did.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
You know, that's what forgiveness is. Sorry, I thought you committed a crime, but it was really me, and it's not even a crime. It was just a mistake, and I can correct this mistake, and forgiveness will correct it.
Wow.
And it's like, but you know, our whole world is made up of what we've judged. So we could help everybody. We could bless, you know, the alternative to judgment is blessing.
Mm-hmm.
What's a blessing that you could give your mother?
Love comes up, just love.
Right. And how much gratitude does your mother deserve?
Infinite.
Infinite. Because one relationship could take you all the way to oneness. If you forgave one person completely, you would be in heaven. You'd be in oneness.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That sounds good.
You would know yourself as your higher self, which is one with the Creator. There's only one higher self. It's all us. But all of our grievances against ourselves make us seem like we're separate from everybody. Like you're over there with your own body, and I'm over here with my own body. But actually, at the spirit level, we're just one light. We're one love.
Yeah.
And the more we realize this, the happier we are. And that's the nature of forgiveness. It stitches us together. It helps us remember that, oh, you're my sister. Oh, you're my best friend. You're my lover. You're my mother. You're everything. And then we come together, and there's this bonding that makes us allies, that makes us travel together toward the light. And everyone you forgive helps everyone. It's at one level, there's just one mind here on this earth. And so forgiveness helps us see clearly. Instead of, when you're stuck, it's because there's some judgment, some grievance you're stuck with. Mm-hmm. And forgiveness is the solvent that somehow we're free of all that glue, and flow comes back, and ease. The more we forgive, the easier things are. The more difficult things are, the more sacrifice we're in. And beside this collective belief in sacrifice, whatever was done with sacrifice could have been done without it. Betty, what's something you feel like, I'm supposed to do this, it's my duty?
Saving my family comes up.
Okay. Yeah. So, but how much sacrifice are you in around that?
Obviously 80%.
So that means 80% you're trying to make it happen. You're in the way of the grace.
Yeah.
What if you step back and let Mother Mary bring Holy Family bonding into your family?
I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be so tired. Just
She brought divine bonding, divine love. And all of a sudden, at this level, now there may be thousands more levels, but all of a sudden at this level, there's peace.
Yeah.
Nobody has to play a role. Because in a family, everybody's playing a role. The hero, that role. Okay. And there's the martyr sacrificer. You know that role. Then there's the scapegoat, the dirty girl, the bad girl. And this is the person in the family who's the black sheep, but is as much contributing to the family as the hero. But it's totally subconscious. And then there's the charmer, the entertainer, the mascot, that's all one. And then there's the ninja, the lost orphan, the lost child. How many lost children do you have inside?
20,000.
Yeah, this is where you thought that by, disappearing, there would, it would be better for the rest of the family.
Yeah,
in which I work with so many people who were given away, but, to another family because the family system couldn't support another child.
Yeah.
Or someone who can disappear because I don't need that much rice. I could exist on a couple kernels a day because I want the rest for my family. And we played all of those roles, some more than others. But under each role, it's a compensation. That's why we don't receive, because we're trying to hide where we feel like I'm a dirty girl, and I felt like a dirty girl all my life. But once I forgive myself as a dirty girl, I see everybody as just clean girls.
Yeah.
And I can free dirty girls. We can bathe together. Humor comes back. The play comes back. The laughter comes back. And my favorite book of poetry, the English version is called I Heard God Laughing by Daniel Ladinsky, who was the interpreter of Hafiza's poems. And the mystics know it's like God is laughing. When Lindsay, my wife, had her oneness experience, God was laughing. You think you're this little, you're these great rays. It's pure love. There's nothing to do. You could rest in God. You could get out of the way. Because sacrifice is just a sneaky ego way that we do out of unworthiness.
Yeah.
That we do out of guilt. But it's not true. Because you can't receive. Giving and receiving are one. So, how many people have tried to give you things that you refused?
100.
So what if you receive them now? Whether it's gratitude or compliments or gifts. Because as you receive, it's like you give permission all over the world for people to receive.
Yeah.
And then you have more to give. And you give automatically because you feel so full. You just want to share.
It's bonded as well. It's receiving them and bonding.
Yeah. And you feel the love underneath. And with your big smile, you want to make everybody smile.
Yeah.
You want everybody to join the party. and overlooking things, which is a minor form of forgiveness, but important. If you don't overlook things, how are you going to succeed in a relationship? If you're nitpicking, it's like you're just, your guy feels like you have a machine gun. And our mind does that.
Yeah.
I remember I worked with one woman years ago, who was just really small. Her husband was really tall, really big.
Yeah.
And I said, you're like a chipmunk with a machine gun. And it sets up these conflicts, it sets up these fights. And that is the sign of a special relationship where your ego is trying to get all of its needs met and be the most special one, rather than build the relationship or build your partner. If something's wrong with your partner, basically who pays the bill?
I'm not sure, me, but somehow
you both do.
Yeah, exactly.
And the relationship takes it in the shorts instead of you moving forward, which is what the opportunity is. So if you think somebody committed an unforgivable sin against you, you have a hidden place where you feel you have committed an unforgivable sin. So can you allow yourself to feel all the gratitude you have for your mother? Because that creates flow.
Yeah, tremendous love.
And love is right behind gratitude. I've worked with people who've been deeply, deeply depressed, and I start asking them to, write down the things they're grateful for. Mm-hmm. And soon, even though they were like, I'm going to commit suicide, it's like, then all of a sudden they're in this kind of happy, buoyant place. It's a giving. So instead of blaming your mother, what gift do you have for her?
Compassion. And it's kind of a female friendship, sisterhood, something like that.
Imagine giving your mother compassion.
Oh, yeah.
Opening your heart for your mother. The Buddha suggested in this world that is just a big dream that we just have compassion for everyone and everything as the way to enlightenment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's really good.
Yeah, and Buddha's enlightenment was the enlightenment of the mind, where the dream falls away. Now that's really scary, actually. There's a void. Buddha lived his life in the void. But then Jesus came along and he brought the second enlightenment. Yeah, you can actually even skip over that void, meaninglessness, that kind of stuff, get to Christ's enlightenment, which is forgiveness. And if you've totally forgiven everything, you're living a life of heaven on earth. And that's the last bit of the dream before there's just oneness, before we take all this form and realize it's just spirit, it's just light, it's just love. And all the rest was just a mistake, and the mistakes can be corrected. That's what we have the Tao for. That's what we have the Holy Spirit for. That's what we have that mind that's connected with oneness, with God, and is inside us. It's the other higher self in our higher self. When the two get to know each other, we're home free. It's just amazing. But it starts with realizing when there's someone I haven't forgiven, there's a mistake I've been making. And they're put here to help remind me of stuff I buried. That's one of the lines in the Course that I really love. It talks about you can feel grateful to everyone. You can feel grateful for the love they give you and the gifts they give you. And you can feel grateful for them being willing to show you the parts deep in your mind that you haven't forgiven. That you buried, that you still feel guilty about. So you can forgive them and you're forgiven, or you can forgive yourself and they're free. All you see is innocence. That's all you see when you've forgiven the world. And then you see everyone's beauty. And then you see where you can connect with them and have fun with them and play with them. But they're major lessons in our lives that we haven't learned yet. Recently, I've been taking people who have these chronic accidents or pain or people who've done that emotionally, and taking them back through it as if it were a shamanic test set up by themselves to gain power. People in the old days, at times when they were wanting to be powerful shamans, they'd inflict pain on themselves. And if they could transcend it, if they could get through it, then they had this new level of consciousness, this new level of power. And what I found is that people done that. And so some of the things they think are the worst in their life is just an unfinished shamanic test. And they can go back and finish it and gain that much power. Or a mastery level test where when this thing happened, my whole world collapsed.
Yeah.
And they could go back and pass that test. And then there's all that goldenness that comes with mastery. But nobody did it to you. That's the crazy thing. It was all chosen. It's like one of the lessons in A Course in Miracles is I'm not the victim of the world I see. And the next lesson is I invented the world I see. That's why I'm not the victim of it. But we hide that from ourselves. Of course we do. Because as soon as you pull back the covers and look in your subconscious mind, your ego says, no, it wasn't them. It was you dirty girl. But it's like, no, it was a mistake. You can correct these errors. Truth, another lesson in the Course is truth corrects the errors of my mind. And so to invite truth in all the time, to invite the Holy Spirit in, to invite the Christ mind, to invite the Buddha mind, it's a dream. And I'm the dreamer. Let's get rid of these bad dreams so we could have happy dreams together.
Yes. Thank you so much, Chuck. 2 minutes to go. You have your session now coming up. Thank you. More of this on the 30th of May. 3 evenings with you or 3 mornings, wherever you are. Thank you.
It's more experiential. We don't talk so much. That's foreplay.
More crying and laughing. Oh, thank you, Chuck. Have a good day. See you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Ciao.